Hey guys, welcome back, and today I'm just going to show you guys a little bit about what I've been doing. You know that I was in video 2, I was creating my own remote control and 3D printing it. So this is my final product right here. As you can see, it has already put the buttons in, and it also has the on off up here. Now I realized really quickly that this guy is going to need an on off switch right here, and I'll show you guys in a second what I did. So over here we have, here was prototype number 2. This was the second one that I had printed off and tested it, but then I realized in a hurry that I actually I forgot to put an on off switch in it in case one of these buttons failed and the plow went to one side, so I would need some way to shut the power off to the buttons. So this one was, like I said, this was a prototype number 2. I ended up with a final switch location up on the top, and it gave me a little bit more room. So I'm going to take this one apart so that I can get these wires out of here. And then we're going to be installing them into my final and last prototype. And you can see I've made some changes here to the actual handle, probably just to make it a little bit easier to grip like this as I'm pressing the buttons, because this one was a solid bottom, and you see this one is not a solid bottom, and this one was a little bit harder to hold in the actual hand. So yeah, we're going to be disconnecting this. I'm going to cut this up, and then I'm going to start wiring these switches here, and I'm going to show you what I bought in a second. So here's another thing I just purchased on Amazon to finish off the project. If you saw my last video, as I'm soldering the actual switches, to get the actual pin on the switch warm enough to accept lead for the solder, it has to get pretty hot, and apparently plastic melts before lead. Something new, I guess. Anyway, so I went online and I bought the little tiny, I think they were 18.8 mil or something like that, little spade connectors. And these guys here is what we're going to be using to put on the back of the switches. So I'm still going to solder the wires inside of these guys. And yeah, apparently on Amazon you can only buy stuff in packs of 50. So just to refresh everybody's memory about how I got here, this was my first design here. This was the first plate that I had manufactured and actually made and printed. But if you recall, the back of the plate didn't have enough room for my switches. So what ended up happening is when I was pushing the switches through, I didn't have enough room over here to thread on the actual nuts. So what I did is I got rid of this, and I created version number 2. And if you remember, I put the little steps, put these little feet in it, and I printed that guy off, and these feet I was going to drill holes, and we were going to put holes in the side of the body. So if you look at the back of this, you see it does have the cutout, and I did have enough room, by reducing it by 2.5 mil, I did have enough room to put my nuts on the back to secure the switches and put it together. The problem with this one was that I still wanted a bit more room for the nuts. I found I was only getting 1 or 2 threads, and then I ended up having to forgetting to put a switch in to turn the power on and off to the plow. So I did that on the side, and I realized I didn't have enough room with all the crappy wiring I did in the back. So I moved it to the front, and this is the location I ended up with on my new print, which is this one right here. This is the new housing print, and if you remember, I sloped the handle in, and this one has the opening for the switch over here, which I have right here. So this switch here is an illuminated switch, and that's going to be mounted in there like so, like that. Snaps into place. Now if you're wondering how I make these items fit nicely, the Canadian Tire micrometer is the best tool you have for 3D printing when you want to measure something and create it. That's the best way to do it. So if you look inside, I'm going to have my my negative there, my positive, and then my feed wire is going to be there. So when I turn the plow, I'll turn the plow on, and then I'll be able to press the buttons. And then we ended up with faceplate number 3. This is the final version of it, and I'm installing this one today. Just got to get this wired up at the back, and you can see I put the Northern Home Garage logo in the front, and it is much thinner than the other ones, considerably thinner actually. If you look at this, because that is the thickness difference right there. Because I did decide that there was no need for it to be this thick. There's not a whole lot of pressure on this when you're pushing down, and this is plenty strong. It doesn't flex, so I think I'm really happy with this. I spaced out the buttons a little closer on the top here, and I'm happy with this. So why don't we get to wiring it and putting it together. I also have to extend the wires to pass them through the cab. I'm not looking forward to putting the wires through the firewall. It's always difficult to find somewhere to do that, but let's get more rolling. Let's get rolling. All right, so let's get rolling. So here you go. Here's my Amazon purchase right there. So I've got more than enough to make a mistake, or 2, or 3. I could even make 4, 5. I can make a lot of mistakes. And if you remember, I have switches. Those are also from Amazon, as well as my 50 diodes. Maybe I can go into business and start making these things. I've got enough components. So here we go, guys. We're probably about 30 minutes after what you saw last time. So you notice it's a much cleaner install. Everything is soldered, wired, and taped up. And that is because this is going to be the permanent and final version of it. Switches in the front, and I have all the wire in the back. So we're going to put this together, and we're going to go test it out, and then we're going to be running the wires through the vehicle. So you notice there's one white wire down in the bottom right here. It's not connected to anything, and that's because over here on this side it is also not connected to anything. It's not being used, so I just left that wire in there in case I need to use this wire for anything at all at one time or other, or time coming. But so let's get this sucker together.